At 8 p.m. on Monday night, please stop what you are doing, go to your front door and shout wankers for everyone that has flouted the lockdown rules. Neil Long, a man, a mission, and a blow-up doll. Who said isolation was bad? Now, the latest news.
An earthquake measuring 5.8 on the Richter scale hit Essex in the early hours of Wednesday with its epicenter in Basildon. Victims were seen wandering around aimlessly, muttering "fucking hell." The hurricane decimated the area, causing approximately £30 worth of damage. Several priceless collections of mementos from Mallorca and the Costa del Sol were damaged beyond repair. 3 areas of historic burnt-out cars were disturbed. Many locals were woken well before their gyro arrived. Essex FM reported that hundreds of residents were confused and bewildered and were still trying to come to terms with the fact that something interesting had happened in Basildon. One resident, Tracy Sharon Smith, a 15-year-old mother of 5, said it was a shock. My little Chardonnay Mercedes came running into my bedroom crying. My youngest 2, Tyler Morgan and Megan Storm, slept through it all. I was still shaking when I was watching Judge Rinder whilst having my breakfast the next day. Apparently, though, looting, muggings and car crime were unaffected and carried on as normal. The British Red Cross has so far managed to ship 4,000 crates of WKD to the area to help the stricken locals. Rescue workers are still searching through the rubble and have found large quantities of personal belongings, including benefit books, jewellery from Elizabeth Duke at Argos, and bone china from Poundland. One resident, Tracy Rooney Beckham Chardonnay Jordan Towie Joey Mercedes, was pulled from the rubble with a wound. When the paramedic asked her where she was bleeding from, she said, "Romford. What's that bleeding got to do with it?"
The latest news. In honour of our Hermes delivery drivers, tomorrow night we are going to stand outside our houses and applaud sometime between 9 in the morning and 10 at night.
You could hear the keyboard rattling as he began to tweet, and the clatter of his tiny hands that never knew defeat as he grabbed hold of a pussy and began to beat his chest. His name was Donald, and he had the biggest button in the West. Now Donald had a girlfriend, a lady they called Stormy, and often he'd comb over when he was feeling horny. Said Donald, "There's my button, it's the biggest in the land." When photographed, that looked the case next to his tiny hands. They called him Donald. Donald. And he had the biggest ego in the West. Now Stormy was an actress and said she'd like a part on Donald's famous TV show where she would break his heart. But Donald had a wife at home and she'd be none too pleased, so he made out that he'd do it and Stormy dropped down on her knees. "That was beautiful," said Donald. Oh. And he had the biggest button in the West. Now Donald had a rival, a dictator called Kim, who called the Don all kinds of names, though he was hardly slim. He said, "I'll fire a rocket, nuclear power is my goal, at that big city in the south, the one we call our Seoul." Well, World War III's about to start, there's trouble in the air. 2 despots want to fight about who has the greatest hair. Said Kim, "Your hair is orange and held in place with glue." Poor Donald didn't like that and said it was fake news. Poor Donald. Donald. And he had the best comb over in the West. Don was only 70 and he was very bitter, as you could tell by glancing at the stuff he wrote on Twitter. From his gold-plated bedroom, he would worry he'd get busted, for it wasn't just the diamonds on his pants that were encrusted. So Kimmy went to China. The president he saw. "You will disarm," said Xi Jinping. "I'll have no nuclear war." He said the same to Donald, but it didn't go as planned, for on the end of disarm was a tiny little hand. Poor old Donald. Donald. And he had the biggest button in the West.
In other news, man books shit holiday in cruise ship horror.
All the clothes are brown, all the clothes are brown, and the hair is grey, and the hair is grey. I made a mistake, booked a saga holiday, There's something in the air, and it's hard to miss, The scent of chewed up Werther's originals, and just a hint of piss. When I saw the ad, it said singles holiday, So I booked a cruise, and went on my way, But when I arrived, the youngest woman there, was a girl called Mabel, with new hips and purple hair. All the clothes were brown, and the hair was grey, But I fell in love, on a saga holiday, I'm the only man on board,
And they've not had sex for years.
And Mabel's hip replacement is so good, her ankles touch her ears.
Neil Long's Shorts and Nortys, streaming now on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher for Android, Spotify, up your local MP's arse, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and here. Play Neil Long's Shorts and Nortys.